Welcome back everyone, I'm Lord Ridiculous, and today I'm going to be telling you whether or not you should buy Overgrowth. Overgrowth is an action platform game which has been developed and published by Wolfire Games. The development cycle has been quite long. Since November 2008, Wolfire Games has released the game in different iterations for alpha testing, usually every 2 to 5 months, containing most of the features implemented in the game, but only given to the people who pre-ordered the game. The game was greenlit on Steam, and in December 2013 it went into early access, and since then the game has been updated here and there and will officially finally release on the 16th of October 2017.
Overview.
So what is Overgrowth? Overgrowth is effectively a series of scenario-based missions. So the story takes place on the island of Lugaru, an unknown number of years after the fall of the human race. This is indicated in the game by ruins of tall man-made structures, and the levels are generally overrun by vegetation. Lugaru is a chaotic world, and it's inhabited by anthropomorphic rabbits, wolves, cats, rats, and dogs. And they're all kind of living at pre-industrial level of technology, i.e. they basically run around with staffs, with blades and swords. Essentially, the story is broken up into two different segments. There's the Overgrowth story and the Lugaru story. In each, you have a series of scenarios which are broken up by load screens. In the first set of stories, called the Overgrowth story, our protagonist Turner, he is, I guess, kind of retreating to this wonderful, beautiful place called White Flag. Essentially, he is met with someone getting threatened, and he wards off this intruder or this raider or whatever you want to call it. And it stems from there. He essentially goes on a mission then to push out these raiders who are trying to exploit these peaceful people, and effectively it takes off from there. It isn't too in-depth, it isn't a very deep story, but it kind of introduces you to the mechanics of the game, and I found it quite engaging for an hour or so. The second segment is called the Lugaru story. Remember, Lugaru is the island you're on, and this is a bit more harrowing. It's a bit more of a cutting, excuse the pun, cutting storyline. Turner arrives back to where he lives after doing patrols. Without ruining too much, he is betrayed by a friend, and essentially there is a political I guess motivation for all of this, that there's slavery connotations, and you are one man, or one rabbit in this case, at war machine, and you go out on revenge. All in all, the story, you know, it's not going to win any awards. It's full of tropes, and it's done through a narrative on screen text. There is no voice acting. When I was playing it myself, I found myself doing the voices. It's serviceable for the actual game. The only kind of issue I have is, and it's not even with the story, it's just how the story is presented and how it plays out in this scenario kind of basis. So just to elaborate on it, essentially there's about 50 scenarios, so 50 levels, if you want to call it that, between the Lugaru and the Overgrowth story arcs. You are presented with these, and you start off, you walk into a village, you do whatever you have to do in that village, then there's a load screen. And the load screen feels like it could be up to 20 or 30 seconds long. Then you'd have another level where you may have passed that village and now you're walking along a mountain path, you have to kill 2 guards. Then you have another load screen, and then you pass that and you go over the mountain and you have to rescue somebody or free somebody, and then you have another load screen, and then the scenarios keep going. So for me, it just feels very disjointed. Whatever immersion, I know it's a third-person game, you're not going to be really immersed in it, but it does feel jarring. And for me, I don't like the way this played out, and it's obviously because it's an indie game, and they didn't have the money to make it open world, etc., which is fine. And they've done a lot with the story in what limited budget they probably had. But for me, it feels like a bunch of levels strung together like you'd get in a mobile game. It doesn't really serve the purpose of, you know, a story world giving you that impression that you're actually having some influence on the world and you're having some impact. It doesn't work in this respect, and it doesn't work in the context of a PC game.
Gameplay.
The core gameplay loop in Overgrowth revolves around context-sensitive combat and platforming. The main protagonist, Turner, has the ability to jump great distances, take on wolves, dogs, rabbits, rats, cats, and pretty much own groups of these different types of troops. He can wield swords, daggers, and he does so in a brutal context. He is the Bruce Lee of the rabid rabbit world. I'm sorry for that pun. The combat in Overgrowth is the main reason to play and replay this game. The combat feels natural. Basically, if you are fighting anybody, you do not just run in head first, because you will get owned very quickly. You need to be tactical, and you need to also pick your shots quite carefully. Be defensive as well as being attacking. It's a nice little change up. It reminds me a little bit of games like For Honor, but without all the prompts on screen, and that way I think it feels way more natural. The only issue I had with the combat was that when you learn the jump kick move, which is really OP, you can pretty much take out anything, any wolf, any big character, whatever, with very little downfall. The only downside being if you play on the harder levels, if you mistime this, you can actually break your neck, which is a nice little, I guess, trade-off. Conversely, the platforming in the game can be fun at times, but because the camera is a little quirky and does what it wants, it becomes kind of tedious. This is shown up especially in levels where you have to platform for large parts of it. For instance, there was one level where I had to scale a mountain akin to Everest, and it took a long time. I didn't know in a lot of parts where to jump, and I died a lot of times. There was little satisfaction when I got to the top. I don't know, it just didn't feel good to me. So yeah, the combat is the main core gameplay loop in this game, which sells it for me.
Verdict.
To conclude, Overgrowth is a fun game. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I've put about 4 or 5 hours into it, and I could see myself putting another few hours into it. I find the combat hardcore and fun, and something which I will go back and replay, but overall, something I didn't even go into, the game feels like a tech demo. You'll probably see from the videos I'll put later on my channel, run-throughs, but there seems to be a good emphasis on modding for this game. The developers have given you a couple of mods already, but there's different levels available through the workshop in Steam, and that's good, but it just feels like there was not enough emphasis on the actual story and seamlessly making it a world that you feel immersed in. But saying all that, the one thing that's going to hold this game back, I see, is the price point. The $30 asking price for this game is, in my opinion, ridiculous for what you get. It's not a fully fledged game. It doesn't feel like one. Like, I know there would be an argument to say that you can do a lot of things with this game and there's endless possibilities with the modding, but for me personally, I think for $30 you should get more, and you should feel like it's a absolutely 100% finished game, and I don't get that feeling from this. And I could say wait till the Steam sales, but this game doesn't seem to have dropped under $20. So for me, I don't think it's worth it. I bought the game, but that's because I love the combat system, and I'll be honest, I think that's wearing thin now. I don't think I'll get more than another couple of hours out of this. That tops it out at maybe 6 hours. So personally, I would not recommend you buy this game. I hope you found this a little bit helpful. That was Overgrowth. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I've been Lord Ridiculous, you've been awesome, until next time, my friends.